UK-friendly emergency podcast. Reported Johnny Cueto to the Marlins. We've talked about it a few weeks back, but finally the Marlins get a deal done, it seems, with Johnny Cueto. Not sure on the term, not sure on what happens next, but the phrase I would use is buckle up. Going to be a fun show. Sean Barrett in the house on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at Miami Marlins_UK. This, for one time, is a perfect time to be based in the UK as the news drops in UK-friendly time while all you East Coasters are snoozing, still asleep. I'm out here grinding. This is how early it is in the UK. I've got to have my light on. I'm sat in front of a window and I've still got to put my backlight on because it's that early. I couldn't even brush my hair. I didn't have time to brush my hair. I had to get on and hit it up. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for listening and making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. This should be your first listen. I hope it is. Delighted to welcome back to the show, Sean Barrett. Sean, the UK GOAT. How we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Pete. You say it's a perfect time. It could have been a couple of hours later because it is incredibly early for me. Right now, but not often you wake up to breaking Marlins exciting news, so I will certainly take it.
Absolutely. You don't have quite the same challenge as I do with the hair on top of the head in terms of rolling out of bed and like, hey, let's go. But, you know, we're all professionals here. Let's also start there before we dig into the meat and potatoes of this show and Johnny Cueto and the ripple effects we'll expect. Shout out to you, brother. You dropped some news yesterday that you're officially now in as a writer, as a Marlins writer. So congrats to you. Also, please take a minute or two just to give a big plug in terms of what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and what they can expect from you moving forwards.
Yeah, so I will be joining the great team over at Fansided. I'll be working with Marlins Maniac, which I'm sure everyone listening already knows about. You will be hearing a lot from me in the next couple of days as far as when my article comes out. It's exciting. Writing is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And I finally, through your help on here and elsewhere, grown the confidence and the ability to actually make that decision and finally do it. And so I applied and I was successful. And it's certainly exciting times for me.
Congrats to you, brother. And I have to call it out. Listen, Sean Barrett is a journalist, and it's reflected in our attire this morning. I'm out here with a crew neck jumper, baseball cap, Sean Barrett, ever the professional, shirt with a collar. Love to see it. No tie, too early for ties, but nevertheless, love to see it. Guys, make sure you follow along with Sean's articles. I've seen the first article. I had a sneak peek, and it is a stunner. I won't share too much, but looking forward to that one. Right, Sean, we've had the news drop this morning, for us anyway, that Johnny Cueto will be signing with the Marlins. We don't have any details in terms of length of contract, size of contract, anything along those lines. But initial reaction, Johnny Cueto coming to the Marlins.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it. It was last year, I think. That's how long ago it was, and that's how long it's taken.
It was last year.
For this move to finally occur. And when we spoke about it, the idea was that we knew that this was going to portend a trade of another arm. But I think Cueto, in any instance, right now, is good for business for the Marlins. Yeah. There was a market for him out there. I think there were a couple of teams out there looking for him. And there's a market for pitching, obviously, because that's where the trade is going to go. But for me, Cueto brings in a steady arm at the back end of the rotation. It is a case of he's not going to light it up. He's not going to be the front line guy, but he's going to fill a slot in the rotation that's more than just eating innings. He's had a good couple of years You're not going to get 30 starts out of him, I don't think. But if you can get 20 out of him, similar to what the White Sox got last year and the year before with the Giants, and even in the 2020 shortened season, he actually had a quote-unquote full season.
Yeah.
So he's been there, and he's given teams quality major league pitching. And whenever you can sign that on what will probably be quite a friendly deal, a short deal, a 1-year deal, below 10 million, you can't not do that. That's good business.
Yeah, absolutely. The reports we were seeing was the Marlins were in on Cueto, but also maybe the Padres were. A few other teams perhaps were as well. I think I saw the Reds maybe as well for a reunion there. So I think for the Marlins to get a deal done, I think is a good sign. Clearly, the offseason, it's been a little bit wonky with offensive guys. And I guess this maybe comes back to what we talked about, where the Lone Depot for a hitter is not attractive. Lone Depot for a pitcher is really attractive. And so if it's a toss-up between, let's say the Reds or the Marlins, no brainer. Because actually, if you're a hitter, you want to be playing in Great American Ballpark, isn't it, for the Reds? It's going to pump the numbers up. As a pitcher, less so. So I think it is an attractive proposition for Cueto to come to the Marlins, particularly if it's a 1-year deal. And it should be a 1-year deal, right? And to your point as well, like I think if it's an under 10 million deal, I think that's going to be absolutely fantastic business. Maybe there's going to be an option in there, maybe a team option. Seems to be the kind of flavor that's going on at the moment. These kind of 1+ teams, but it's heavily weighted into the 1-year deal. I think that's probably the most likely. If it's under 10 and 1 year, Sean, looking at a guy who had 3.5 WAR last year as well as a starter and did well. I mean, that's fantastic business for the Marlins if that is indeed the contractual approach they take here.
Absolutely, and obviously we've got this young pitching coming through at the higher minors at the moment. So it is a case of he fills that gap for 1 year. That's perfect. And yeah, between Lone Depot Park and playing in Cincinnati, that is, you couldn't think of two parks that were that different.
No.
For the Marlins, I hope that, with the market being where it is, I think a 1-year deal makes sense. I'd like to see the Marlins maybe go that $1 million more or $2 million more to get the deal done rather than stretch to a second year. If it is a second year, I think you are right. It will be a team option, a team-friendly option that they can just simply pull out of if they need to or want to. Even if it's a vesting option, then you put that vesting option high, but you don't see them in many deals at the moment. That seems to be an option that just disappears. So yeah, 1-year deal, 10 million or under, then I will be incredibly happy with this deal.
Me too. I think Cueto brings a lot, not only, irrespective of the landscape. I'm going to talk about the landscape and the potential knock-on effects because that is where things start to get interesting, I think. But take that away, one of the best free agent starters available. And the Marlins have got a deal done, seemingly. So for me, that's a positive. And what happens next will be interesting. But for me, Cueto is absolutely the perfect guy because he's a talented dude and he will sign a short-term deal. He'll be seeking short-term deals. And the Marlins, that fits their profile perfectly. Why? Because Cueto is a bridge. It is a bridge plan to the guys that you were talking about, Sean. This is a bridge to Max Meyer, Jake Eder, Dax Fulton, Uri Perez. You need a bridge to those guys for 2024. Cueto, for me, is the absolute perfect guy to bridge it into those guys. Right, we're going to talk about the knock-on effects, but before we do that, reminder, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and betonline.net. Of course, is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. All the latest odds and trends for every league out there, professional or amateur. Doesn't matter. They've got you covered. I'm sure they've got tons of lines going for the NFL playoffs that are starting this weekend. How about those Dolphins, baby? Squeeze it in. It's going to be intriguing to see how they go. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online where the game starts. Where are we back to? We're back there. Okay. Right then, Sean. For me, there's 4 arms that have been talked about. There was an article that came out perhaps yesterday, day before, losing track of days, but saying that 4 of these arms are available. And those 4 arms, it's basically not Sandy, but the ones that follow: Pablo Lopez, Trevor Rogers, Jesus Luzardo, and Edward Cabrera. For me, my gut feel on this one is if they have agreed terms with Johnny Cueto, they likely have a deal in principle to trade one of these 4, at least one of the 4. There may be multiple guys, who knows, but at least one of the 4. I think there'll be a trade that will follow very, very shortly, and likely before that the Cueto deal becomes official, if that makes sense. When we look at these 4 guys, they all have pros and cons, in my opinion. You have Pablo Lopez, who, when we look at the pros, last year, absolute stud. Full year. When we look at the cons, ARB2. From a Marlins perspective, that is a con. And also, it was his first full year. So we don't have a huge track record of Pablo delivering huge amounts of innings. When we look at Jesus Luzardo, pros, pre-ARB. So that's good. Stunning 2022. Innings were a con, and equally not a huge track record. Edward Cabrera, pre-ARB. Profile's amazing. Sandy 2.0. Con, injuries. A lot of them. They come frequently in multiple body parts. Big concern, in my opinion. Trevor Rogers, pros. Rookie of the year, runner-up in 21. 22, not so good. However, on the pro side, pre-ARB. So they all bring different things. There's a few lefties in there. What do you think is going to happen next? Because this is where things start to get to speculation and conjecture and assumptions. And we are assuming that the Marlins will make a deal. Where's your head going here with these 4 guys?
I mean, obviously, the obvious name is Pablo. It's a case of we've talked about it so much, and it's the logical move. And I've struggled to move off of that for a long time.
Yeah.
And said that, there is something exciting about the Marlins being able to bring in an impact bat and keep that 1-2 punch of Alcantara and Lopez. It's something that really would, give me a shot in the arm as far as being excited for the season. That's not to say that if they do trade Pablo that I wouldn't be excited, but when you're talking about these I don't want to call them lesser players, but we know what Pablo is. We know what we've got from him. He's a frontline pitcher who, for the first time, gave us 30 starts last year. Any team that are trading for Cabrera or Rogers or Luzardo, they're bringing in a guy that they are projecting and they are hoping develop into something like what Pablo was last year. And with the length of service time that they've got that time as well. All 3 of them have displayed ability and talent at the major league level, and you continue to project that. I think Luzardo probably last year showed more for me. I think he could be a big name out there. Rogers has that pedigree and is still so young, and has shown in half a season, at least at the beginning, what he could do at the major league level. So all 4 are, as you put it, at different stages of their careers and have different values, not just for the Marlins, but for the projected teams that they may go to. But for me, it's hard to see any team giving away a major league bat at centre field if that's what the Marlins really are looking for anything other than Pablo Lopez. But I guess we'll see.
Who do you think of those 4 guys? And I know there's different websites out there that could maybe help steer it, but who do you think has the highest trade value? Who is the most sought after of those 4? Do you think it is Pablo Lopez, or do you think other teams are thinking, actually, we prefer Jesus Luzardo or Edward Cabrera, for example? Where do you sit on that?
It depends, because obviously the service time is a big factor in that. When you're bringing in a guy like Lopez, 2 years, that has a value. Whereas the younger guys, you've got 3, 4, however many years of service time left for them. So it is a case of, I suppose, what the team. It's not so much what these values are because we've all used these different sites and we find these values and we like to put together these trades, and it's a bit of fun. But for an actual organisation looking at it, it depends on what you need. If you need 2 solid years of a frontline pitcher, you want Pablo. If you're developing a young team and you're trying to win soon, but not now, then the younger guys are going to have more value for you.
Yeah.
And for the Marlins, again, it is a case of what's more valuable to them. Is it all this time that they've got with these young pitchers, or is it this 2-year window that you say, we're going to use Pablo? We've got him for this year and next year, and we're going to go and try and be competitive. And if it doesn't work out, they'll probably trade him at the deadline next year. But if you can get a controllable centre field bat, then yeah, it is a case of Pablo probably is expendable. You've got this pitching depth. You've done the hard part. Now it's time to make some hay and put a competitive a team on the field.
Yeah. The point you make there, I think, is the main point around these 4 starters. They actually all offer different things, and they will suit different teams depending on what they're trying to do in 2023, 24, and beyond. And I think that's the kind of critical point here is this isn't just right, that's Pablo Lopez gone, because some teams will look at Pablo and go, right, ARB2 doesn't fit our window. Let's say they're trying to, let's say they're trying to pull a deal with the Pirates for Reynolds. I don't think they will be, to be honest. But for the Pirates, Pablo Lopez doesn't fit the profile. Edward Cabrera might do, or should do, actually. He'd be a perfect fit there. Bit like maybe where the Rockies were asking about Edward Cabrera. The Rockies aren't quite in contention yet either. And so, each of these guys offers something different. I've always felt that there's too many lefties in this organization. So they really need to consider what they're going to do with the lefty front. But I could honestly see 2 of these of the 4 going in the next couple of weeks. I did say on Twitter yesterday that if the Marlins aren't considering trading Pablo Lopez, aren't considering extending Pablo Lopez, and this is a point you've made for some time as well, he should be traded in 2023. That could either be now, it could be at the deadline, it could even be after the season. But in 2023, if the Marlins aren't going to extend Pablo, then he should be traded in this calendar year. Will that be now? We'll wait and see. For Trevor Rogers, bounce back candidate perhaps, there was, by all accounts, a lot of interest at him at the deadline as well. So we know there's a market there. Edward Cabrera, there's a buzz around. There's a buzz for all of these guys. And so the Marlins can go in so many different directions. And this is where our next conversation is going to be, is what do we think is going to happen? Because we've heard the Angels sniffing around. We've heard the Rockies. We've heard the Padres, the Red Sox, a lot of heat on the Red Sox and Marlins hookup. I'm very intrigued to see where they go. But before we do that, guys, I want to remind you about our good friends over at Built Bar. Yes, sir, it is Built Bar time. It is the new year. And that means you're looking for delicious treats, but without the fat and the calories. You've got to try those Builts. We just got through the holidays, and my goal, and I know yours probably is too, to eat a little bit healthier this year and probably drink less. If you're like me, you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then I've got it for you. It's the Built Bars, baby. Healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, so delicious. You think they're good for you, but you won't think they're good for you. So try and say that. Let me try and say it again. They're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. That's what I meant to say. Perfect for your New Year's resolutions. What makes Built so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, 100% real chocolate. Come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. Where can you get them? Here's the question. And you don't have to wait around to get a box. But for years, we've been talking about get the Builts from Built.com. No, well, still yes, but you can also get them from your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section. Grab yourself a box of Built Bars. 4-bar box, cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. Or if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with all the hit flavors, including brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later, guys. All right. Just about got through that one. Okay. get your GM hat on then, Sean Barrett. What do you think is a likely outcome here? Where, if you are hedging your bets, do you see one of these Marlins current starters landing, and what kind of position or player can you see coming back?
So I think position-wise, you're definitely talking about an outfielder at this point. I think it's just a foregone conclusion there. There are so many ways to go, isn't there? I mean, there's been discussions with, as you said, Rogers from Colorado in an Edward trade, and I think that to me is interesting. You know, it is a case of he's a young player. He's got positional value. He's a second baseman, but could play the outfield. I think Reynolds still, for me, it's just that niggling little feeling in the back of your head. It makes far too much sense. But for the Marlins not to go out there and get it done, and what a move it'd be! How exciting would that be that this player that we have been considering and thinking about and hoping about for 2 years, Kim finally gets it done. It would be a fantastic move, and until a move is made, I can't move off of that. That's where my head is. That's where my heart is. That's the move I want to see.
Yeah, the Brian Reynolds one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been knocking around since 2021 deadline. I think is perhaps where we started to kind of think about Brian Reynolds. Obviously, I think they started conversations about Reynolds and Stallings at the 2021 deadline. Couldn't get it done. Got Stallings done in the offseason, but they've been on Reynolds for a long, long time. And the service time just continues to accrue and the control reduce. Not convinced. I'm not sure what the Pirates are trying to do. I did hear a report from, I'd say more of a source is how I would describe it, to say that the Pirates and Reynolds, the view is that Reynolds actually is still happy in Pittsburgh, but was just not happy with the way they approached the extension. And so I think maybe there still is a chance that Reynolds is extended by the Pirates, but they just need to be a bit maybe realistic with their dollar amounts. I think that was maybe where this animosity has come, where they engaged in good faith in extension conversations, and then there was a low ball offer and too low ball of an offer, which made him say, I'm out of here, and I don't think we're on the same page. We'll wait and see on that one. I'm with you, though, Sean, on that. It's been niggling. Where my head's going on this is this Red Sox hookup. I think it makes a ton of sense. The question is what players come back? And the more I've thought about it, I think the Marlins seemingly are really in. And the reason being is I think they're really in on this Tristan Casas, first baseman. The reason being, it fits the profile in terms of the service time remaining. And, I think they are seeking those kind of guys, those kind of bats. They fit the profile nicely. So I think they're really interested there. The Red Sox Twitter is saying, no, there's no chance in hell he's being traded. They obviously like the player. They like the profile, the fans anyway. But let's be totally honest. For a team like the Red Sox, first base, they can solve that riddle, that puzzle in many, many different ways. Many different ways. They're willing to spend money to acquire players there. The Marlins simply are being outbid very regularly, and players don't really want to come. And I think the Red Sox could solve that riddle in a different way. And so I could certainly see a Miguel Rojas, Pablo Lopez for Casas and Rafaela kind of deal coming in. I think that could be interesting. In the meantime, I'd still think the Marlins could and should engage with the A's on Laureano. And almost what you end up with is a Laureano for a couple of years. Rafaela continues to develop at center field. Don't have to rush him. And that becomes the plan. You have Johnny Cueto in as the bridge plan to the guys I mentioned, Dax, Uri, Max Meyer coming back. Sixto, we have to say Sixto as well. Don't know where he's at. But they've got a whole ton of guys. Cueto is the bridge. Maybe Laureano is the bridge to Rafaela. Casas comes in, plays first base, along with Coop. They keep both guys for this year, and then Coop's a free agent, and then you've got your first baseman for the future. That's just where my head's going. It will be probably wildly off, but that's the kind of smoke that we're hearing, right? It is a lot of smoke around the Red Sox. But there's other teams out there. The Angels are sniffing around. The Guardians are sniffing around. I've had tons of Guardians people messaging me. Pete, what's happening with the Marlins? Who are they? What are they looking to do? Because the Guardians are saying we need some pitching. Other teams are saying we need some pitching. What do the Marlins need? Try and get a deal done. Actually, the Marlins need tons. But the pieces you mentioned, though, Sean, center field, we do have to consider shortstop as well in some ways because, Miggy Rowe, whatever happens this year, there's going to be a gap to fill there. Maybe Jazz does slide over to shortstop. I don't know. Where's your head at on that one? Or is maybe Segura the shortstop for now? I'm a little bit unclear. I know we haven't spoken directly about it since Segura signed. So how do you think they address this shortstop spot?
I still may be the last man on the Miggy Rojas should be the shortstop for the Marlins. I think the defensive capabilities there absolutely have value. The way pitching is set up with Sandy, ground ball pitcher, you need that. You can't have players kicking around the ball in the infield. And with him, you've got to steady ship there. I think the way you've just worded it is perfect in the sense of when all the free agent started pitching was starting to go off the board and this team was filling that hole and this team was filling that hole. We were concerned, weren't we? Like, is there going to be a market left for the pitching that we've got to get these deals done? And now we're here and there are still 3-4 teams on the phone trying to get pitching from the Marlins. And harking back to what you said earlier, the idea that a major league team have too many left-handed starting pitchers. I mean, oh, what a terrible situation to put yourself in. Hey,
there you go.
The team, as it stands, it must be exciting for Kim right now to know that she's got all these options and she can start to sort of pick her price, start to pick the players that she wants. And if the Marlins can do anything like what you've just projected, that sounds like a competent baseball team, doesn't it? Having plans for the future. We've got this player, we've got this major league player here. Once he goes, we've got this young guy coming in to fill that gap. That would be something that I don't think I've ever seen the Marlins have. It's always been build up, try and win, break it all down. And when the new ownership came in, they talked about having a continual competitive window, trying not to go build up, break down. And I know we've had our doubts, and on Twitter sometimes we can talk some rubbish about the way that the team is being run. But as it stands, this morning, I am the most optimistic I am about this team than I have been for, this entire year.
Yeah. That's not hard, but I know what you mean for, probably including 2022 in that sentence. But Sean, I think you make a great point there, though, actually. This is Kim's time. We as a fan base have found it hard to be patient, but we've shown patience to varying degrees. But this is our time. This is when the patients come home to roost, where all of a sudden you have 4 arms available. There's really no free agents available and no one else is selling pitching. This is now the time where you make these deals. And it could be multiple deals. Like if they're saying 4 guys are available, there's no, and there's clearly multiple needs on the offensive side. So we'll wait and see what happens. But this is Kim's moment. This month, January 2023, is Kim's moment to put her stamp on this organization. And if we can make the right moves, then I think it will set us up both for this season and for future years. If we make some wrong moves, then boy, oh boy, it will set us back. But they have the arms. We have the market. It's time to make these deals. And I think the fans should be excited. I think I'm excited. You're excited because this is what we're waiting for. We've been asking for activity. We now have Cueto. We know what that means. The domino gifts are flying out everywhere. We know what this means. that there's going to be action. There has to be action. The 40-man's full. 40-man's full. You know, we've all had that drama last week about Charles LeBlanc. I think his DFA period actually will be up in the next day or two. So interested to see what happens with LeBlanc. But aside from that, you know, there has to be moves coming. Cueto signals there will be. And I'm excited to see what they can do. I am excited to see what Kim can do. And I think that's going to be all of the talk, all of the rumor, all the speculation for the next couple of days until something is out there. As we finish up on a 30-minute episode early in the morning on a Tuesday, 10th of Jan, reporting here that the Cueto is coming to the Marlins. We don't know the length. We don't know the dollars, but we are certain that it is a good deal for the Marlins in terms of they have a good player and they have a really nice bridge to their next cluster of arms that is coming through. There's going to be a move, and we're excited to see what it is. It's clear that one of the 4 arms, I think, will be traded in the coming days, and it's just about where and how and what players come back in return. That's going to wrap us up for Locked On Marlins on a Tuesday morning. Hope you've enjoyed the episode, guys, and thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. I thank Sean Barrett as well. I have dug him up out of bed and said, Sean, you have to come on. I need a journalist. I need a reputable journalist on this episode with me. But that is Peter Pratt, Sean Barrett signing out. Locked On Marlins on Tuesday. And listen, guys, when there is news, there is Locked On Marlins. You know it. So if there's more news that drops later, there will be a double episode. We'll wait and see. In the meantime, enjoy that. Enjoy your day.